All right, so then he says, so why does this matter? Why does it matter? Well, he says it matters because it affects how we see our relation to God and to our own sin. He says Peterson is clear that when she says morality is grounded in nature, she does not mean our sin nature, but our created nature. But the problem is, how are we going to tell without begging the relevant question what our created nature is? Right? There's lots of ways to view our created nature. So, you know, and by begging the question, he says what we're doing here is we have kind of preloaded the answer into the question, right? He says by begging the relevant question, he means that the created nature is not going to be any help in identifying how we ought to live if we have to already know what our obligations are in order to identify our created nature. So
Right.
notice there's kind of a circular begging the question kind of issue here that he's raising.
And I think that's at the point where the divine command theorist, once this question is raised by the teacher, he raises his hand and go, ooh, pick me, pick me. Well, he goes on to say then that our nature does indeed give us reasons, but some of them are good and some of them are bad, right? So our sinful human nature, or if you just look at humanities in general, you can say, the on the island of saints, suddenly there arises some sinners. So what are the good aspects and what are the bad? And where do they originate from? And is that our natural starting point? So Hare goes on to say that we therefore need some way to discern which reasons given us by our nature we should follow. The problem is that this account of our natural ends is inadequate for the project of deducing our moral obligations from it. Various ends conflict with its practice, and the appeal to human nature does not settle these conflicts. Well, that's just the way God made me, or that's just the way that I am. Well, the way that you were made is a jerk. So stop doing that because that's not the way that you should be operating when it comes to how you treat friends or how you conduct yourself in a class or how to be professional in the workplace. And so,
right. So notice what he says here is that part of our human nature seems to imply that part of our purpose is to, and he gives a list of, to survive and reproduce and that sort. But how does that connect then to our moral obligations, right? And, so that's what he's getting at here.
Yeah. So he goes on to say here that sometimes we pursue survival, reproduction, pleasure, and the advantage of our group by lying, stealing, and committing genocide. It's just who we are. It happens. Whoopsie. Also, nope. That's the good because I'm at my endpoint. Genghis Khan was good in that he limited the CO2 production and allowed a flourishment of trees that we can actually measure today because he killed 10% of the world's population by committing genocide. So good, bad, indifferent, maybe. Well, by his nature, he is a warlord, right? So he did what had come naturally to him. So she's not, for Hare, she's not connecting these 2 points well. So
right.
we are
so even if our purpose is for to pursue survival and reproduction and pleasure and the advantage of our group, again, we can do that in an immoral way. Right, is what you're trying to get at, what he's trying to get at there. And so this doesn't really give us a good way to consider what morality is all about. Yeah. So again, he's driving home this issue. Our nature doesn't connect well with our moral obligations. It doesn't, just by virtue of who we are, even our purposes, doesn't seem to allow us to have, moral obligations that we would consider morally correct unless we build them in at the beginning.
Which I think lends you into a consequentialist point of view where you talk about the ends justifying the means, and you say, well, how can you do all these evil things in order to get to the end point? Well, I was put in charge to take care of these people, and this is the way that's best going to give us. And so if we have to kill, so many babies in order to appease the the false gods, and that's exactly what we'll do. And so to off to the burn pits your child must go. So there's the good is the crops have replenished themselves. So that's what we were supposed to do, right? So then he goes on to say that we get a sufficiently rich account of nature to allow this deduction only by building our moral obligations into our account of a created human being. And this begs the relevant question.
So we have to assume morality if we're working only with human nature to get morality, right? And of course, that's question begging.